Now, while our challengers argue over who can pull the most birds following their TV appearance, we'll take a look at today's reviews. If we were being harsh, we'd say that Alien v Predator was a Doom rip-off trotted out to boost flagging Jaguar sales, but we're not, so we won't.
You can play 3 different characters. You can be an alien, a predator, or a marine. With the marine, you get tooled up with some excellent weapons, you've got some great guns, and you get some really creepy moments as you walk around this rather dark and eerie space station.
Walking around the space colony, you don't get to see that many aliens or predators. They're really rather spaced out, and when they do come and attack you, they're normally in groups of 3 or 4. This does tend to make for rather boring gameplay, as, you know, you're just walking around with absolutely nothing to do.
Alien vs Predator has a lot of problems, but I think they're sort of eased by the overall size of the game and the amount of challenge that's there. It's probably the only thing in the Jaguar that's actually worth the cost of the cartridge, and it's certainly better than things like Trevor McFur.
Now we have the very maturely titled Balls. A few years ago I would have made some pathetic joke about this title, but I'm grown up now, you'll be pleased to hear.
The characters are particularly quirky in Balls. There's ostriches, clowns, strongmen, scorpions, and they all have attack patterns and special moves that sort of relate to the kind of character they are. This works quite well, and it makes for a bit of a novelty, along with obviously the 3D aspect of the game.
It's fluid, it's fast, it's like Virtua Fighter, very difficult to control, and it takes a long time to get used to, but once you do, it's actually really good fun.
Finally, we know Smash Tennis has been out for a while, but we'll still review it, A, because it's fab, and B, because we feel like it.
All the shots are under your fingers. You've got buttons for lobs, you've got slices, top spin, all sorts of play. You can play at the net, you can play at the back of the court, doubles, singles, it's all there.
Apart from just being a great tennis simulation, Smash Tennis has a lot of hidden secret options and bonuses. For example, on the beach course, you can hit the palm tree, knock a coconut out, and you don't get any points or anything, but it's just a nice little touch.
On a rainy Saturday night, this would probably be an ideal game. You can invite some of your friends round, plug them what you tap in, and away you go.
As another gaming bud bursts into bloom, let's tiptoe through the tulips in today's reviews. First up, it's strange that EA should choose to represent the 7.5-foot Shaquille O'Neal with a 2-inch sprite. But let's not split hairs. What's Shaq Fu really like?
The characters are very fluid, and they look like real fighters, and the moves they use look more realistic than any game I've seen. There is a payoff in that the characters are slightly unresponsive and slow, and also they're so small.
Games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat that feature big sprites are possibly a bit more playable because it's actually easier to see what's going on, and you can be more accurate with the blows you strike.
Basically, you've got to have the gameplay there. It's no good having a game that just looks great. It's got to play great as well. I'd bet slam dunk this one in the bin if I were you.
Next up, shock horror, big name license in box standard platform game. Hooray! Michael Jordan, Chaos in Windy City.
As a platform game, it's got the novelty of not having to jump on people's heads, but instead you use your basketball to get rid of the baddies. The baddies themselves are quite strange, as giant spiders and other seemingly weird people with basketballs for heads.
Michael Jordan's looks very good. All the sprites move lovely and the movement's great. You have to find keys to open doors and you have to push switches to operate lifts. Very bog standard platform game, I'm afraid.
It seems to be a trend at the moment involving basketball players in sort of unrelated games. Platform fans would be better off looking somewhere else, and basketball fans would be better off with something like NBA Jam.
Finally, travel through space, meet interesting new people, and kill them in the name of progress in Inferno.
Inferno is the most incredibly fast, incredibly detailed and incredibly smooth PC shoot-'em-up so far, and it very much is a shoot-'em-up. It has simulation overtones, but there's so much blasting to do and so many sort of alien baddies to kill that no one's going to get bored except perhaps flight simulation enthusiasts.
With over 700 missions, well, stages actually, that you can access during the evolutionary period of the game, this is very in-depth and will take up a lot of your time. If you're into these sort of games, then this is obviously for you. Go out and buy it now.
As the nation rises in unison to acclaim Chris's effort and say, I could have done better, let's take a look at this week's reviews. Doom 2 on the PC has an 18 certificate, so we can only show you the cute bits. Sorry, but rules are rules.
Hi, my name's Adrian, and I have a confession to make. I'm a Doomaholic. I've been playing it 12 hours a day, but recently I've curbed my habit by playing Doom 2. It's got guns in it.
It's very bloody, it's very violent, and it's very fast-paced. There are adventure elements, and there are loads of weapons to pick up, and there are loads of things you do have to figure out. But other than that, you pretty much shoot everything and find your way out of the level. It's excellent, but it's not really a sequel.
What makes Doom and Doom 2 so exciting for the game player is the involvement of it all. The graphics are stupendous. They absolutely convince you that you're in an alien landscape. In a way, Doom 2 is really just a set of data discs for Doom 1. There's hardly anything different. You get a new gun and there's a bunch of new monsters. But at the end of the day, you're just getting a whole load of new levels for Doom, and that's no bad thing.
Ghoul Patrol is the follow-up to the brilliant Zombies Ate My Neighbours, but is Mr. Dodgy's sequel going to pay a visit?
It's got a wonderful humour to it. It's basically very much in the line of the 50s B-movie horror film with all sorts of ghouls and goblins that you've got to track down. And there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek drama to it. I like it a lot. It's a good, involving game.
If you remember Zombies Ate My Neighbours, then you'll have a very good idea of what Ghoul Patrol is going to be like. It's maze action, you know, very Gauntlet inspired. Run around, save the hostages, shoot the ghosts, get out of the level. Basically, there's too much roaming around, collecting things for my liking.
This isn't really as good as the first game. It's a bit too complicated, and some of the levels are far too large. You get lost very easily. The extra power-ups and the extra bonus items do add a little to the game, but there's really not much here to recommend it over the original.
Finally, how original, a one-on-one beat-em-up. Except this time it's on 3DO, it's Way of the Warrior, and it's a wee bit grungy.
It uses large digitised actors instead of sprites, but it's not very fluid. It's actually quite difficult to control the characters, and there doesn't seem to be much in the way of realism involved in the fighting.
It's a lot better looking than, say, Mortal Kombat 2 or Super Street Fighter. What Way of the Warrior really lacks is a strong, weighty feel. Each of the characters feels too light and airy.
For a game to be really smart on something like the 3DO, it's going to have brilliant graphics, brilliant sound, and it's going to have to move really quickly. And I'm afraid Way of the Warrior just doesn't do that.
Shaky J.
Well, as Daniel trudges off, a sad, lonely figure, probably wishing he'd never applied in the first place, let's smile our way into reviews. First up, surprise, surprise, another blank cheque for Mr. Sega. But is Sonic Triple Trouble on the Game Gear worth your pennies?
It's the usual Sonic fare. Run around platforms, pick up rings, jump on springs and speed around with your red sneakers. It's great stuff.
Generally, I've never really liked Sonic games, you know, just too much tedious running to the left and right, picking up rings. But I found myself playing the Game Gear game for quite a while, actually, at least until the batteries ran out. And you've got some great power-ups, you've got little jet boots and stuff, you even got a snowboard. Cool, Sonic.
It's easily the best platform game on the Game Gear, certainly. It's got incredible graphics. It's more of the same old Sonic story. This one looks pretty close to the Mega Drive original, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
From the maker of Cool Spot and Aladdin, is Earthworm Jim just another platform game or the platform game?
He's got guns, he's got like a fierce display of firepower just in this one tiny little gun. He can swing across bridges, he can jump huge chasms. Basically, this guy can do just about anything.
it's got a very nice linear feel. You always know where you're going and you always know where you've got to get to. There's also bags of humour, lots of inventiveness, totally different perspectives, like the Into the Screen bit where you have to fly down tunnels picking things up.
There's so many puzzles you have to solve and so many different sub-games that you'll be playing this for weeks.
Finally, take a cute character, add some platforms and cook in sequel batter. But is Bubsy 2 a mouth-watering morsel or lean cuisine?
Bubsy as a character has certainly become more rounded. He's got a great line in patois and he's got some very funny wisecracks and ideas. But as a game, it's really not coming together. Half the time, you've got no idea where you're going.
You run from left to right, jumping over obstacles, leaping from platform to platform, often blindly, as you can't really tell where you're going. The game is, frankly, tedious, and it's certainly worse than its prequel.
Compared to the likes of Earthworm Jim, Bubsy 2 just doesn't stand out. Earthworm Jim's got a lot going for it, originality, whereas Bubsy's going over the same old stuff again. Maybe I'll be saying this about Earthworm Jim 2 when it comes out.
Walks away with a higher percentage of skip in his step. Meanwhile, we'll take a look at today's reviews. First up, from the film that spawned that Elton John single, the Lion King game tries to apologise.
Lion King is easily the best Disney license yet. Not only is it fabulous characterisation, there's also a lot of interaction, not only with the jungle scenery, but also with other jungle animals. Like you have to jump on giraffes' heads and swing from rhinos' tails. And there's some lovely puzzle elements too, involving monkeys. I'll leave it at that at the moment.
Same animators that actually made the film have had a hand in making the game. You can tell this by the quality of the animation. It is absolutely superb.
It's probably a bit of a disappointment to people who were expecting something special. Where it really excels is graphics and sound. The animation's superb and the music's excellent. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as everything else.
Next up, little blokes in helmets throw stuff at each other. No, it's not a criminal justice bill march, it's Mega Bomberman.
With 4 players, you can run around the mazes bombing each other to your heart's content, or play the adventure mode where you just rush through the various levels, defeating the end-of-level bosses. It has simple graphics, simple sound, but you don't need anything special. It's the gameplay that counts, and this has it in bucket loads.
At the start of the battle mode, you can actually choose what sort of character you're going to look like. You can either have a big roly-poly geezer, or you can have a tiny little one, or you can even have a policeman. It has no relevance on the game and how the players play, but it just looks great.
As a one-player game, it doesn't seem to stand up so well. I mean, it's still fun, but it really is a multiplayer game. Get as many mates around as you can, grab a joypad, and have a great game. You'll be there all night.
Finally, loads of dodgy actors ham it up on CDI Cluedo, but is the game itself a crime?
There are 3 scenarios on Cluedo on the CDI. Each one has its own dedicated piece of FMV. There are lots of character shots of each of the characters, like Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, and basically once you've seen all these, it starts to get a bit boring.
Tedious in the extreme. You have to wait while all this video goes on instead of just making the next move. And frankly, if you're sat playing board games on your telly, I think you really need to have a word with yourself.
Cluedo's a great game, but why bother playing it on the CDI? All you get is some naff footage and carry-on extras. And as a game, it doesn't really get any better. The only thing that I could say in its favour is that you don't have to clear up the board after you.
You think the murderer was Mrs. Peacock, in the lounge, with the wrench?
I'm sorry, but you've got it wrong.
And as another challenge that scales hitherto unknown peaks of personal pride, we come crashing back down to terra firma with today's reviews. First up, what's the best way to shamelessly rip off Mario Kart, make it even better and call it Street Racer?
Street Racer came as a bit of a surprise. It's quite simply the best racing game on the Super NES, if not any machine. While you're racing, you can pick up power-ups, you can punch other racers off the track. It's fantastic.
As well as allowing you to have 4 players on screen at once, there are also a fantastic array of bonus games. There's a football game where you have to knock a ball around from within your car against all the other players, which is fab. And there's also a kind of sumo wrestling game where you all have to knock each other out of a ring.
Each character in the game has his own set of tracks. There's Hodger, little Turkish geezer with a beard, and then there's Biff, who's a bit of a bully. Each individual track is very different from the last one and makes for very competitive racing.
Next up, take a cute cartoon license and flog it till it lies coughing and spluttering. Is Acme All-Stars a game too far?
Acme All-Stars is like two sports games rolled into one. You've got a straight basketball game and a straight football game. They feature all the characters from the Tiny Toons series, and as such, it's a bit young for most people, I think. It's quite easy.
The football side of Acme All-Stars is not exactly up to FIFA or sensible soccer standards, but it is a very funny game in its own right. If you've got some friends that want to join in, it's even funnier. Hampton Pig is top winger extraordinaire.
Both the games are rather limited, and I think even younger kids are going to get bored of this pretty quickly. If you want a football game, get a proper football game, and likewise for basketball.
Finally, Indy has a moustache, bizarrely, but is his SNES outing a highlight or a hairy moment?
The man with the hat is back. Indiana Jones comes to the Super NES. Very much like Castlevania, there are plenty of platforms and there's plenty of whipping action.
The Indy character is beautifully animated. He performs all your typical Indy functions. He can whip, he can jump, he can shoot people. And what you have here is a platform game with lots of levels, lots of nice graphics, and Indy.
Basically, it does the same for the Indiana Jones films as the Star Wars game did for Star Wars. If you like the Indiana Jones films and you're a big Star Wars games fan, then this could be for you.
Now it's time to sort out the Amex Gold cards from the home-based discount ones in today's reviews. First up, if you like naff game shows, you need no longer watch BBC One. You can play Twisted instead.
Twisted on 3DO is extremely strange. It's kind of like a cross between Monty Python and The Price is Right. A game show host leads you through a series of completely bizarre sub-games, none of which make any sense, so there's no point describing them.
There's one really annoying part in Twisted, and that's when you get stuck on the wheel of torture. You have to get out of this, you have to line up three beads in a row, and only then will you be able to carry on. I got stuck on there for absolutely hours, and all my mates were laughing at me.
Among the sub-games available is, for instance, the scrambled TV picture, which you have to put together yourself, or zapping the TV commercials, where you get a series of 9 televisions and you've got to kill the ones with adverts on while retaining the one with the movie. There's all sorts of games like this, puzzle games really, but it's great fun and it'll certainly have you laughing.
Next up, Dynamite Heady. He's got a head and he's dynamite.
It's very colourful, it's very bright, and it's got some of the weirdest bosses you are ever going to see. It's got a huge, inflatable, giant pink sausage dog. Excellent.
On the surface, Dynamite Heady is a straight platform game, but it doesn't take long to realise that there's a lot more going on in it. For a start, the head is the weapon, which is very strange, but there's also some very strange power-ups too, like you can turn your head into a bomb.
Dynamite Heady is the second game from Treasure, the people who brought you Gunstar Heroes last year on the Mega Drive. And it's of equivalent quality. Fantastic looking game, amazing graphics, good slick gameplay, an excellent platform game and worthy of a place in anyone's collection.
Finally, after Super Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2, is Samurai Showdown just who?
The thing that surprised me most about Samurai Showdown was how different it was from other beat-em-ups. Here you've actually got weapons you can use and other sort of accompaniments, like one character has his dog who he can sort of set on another character.
Samurai Showdown first turned up on the Neo Geo about a year ago, and at the time it was one of the best beat-em-ups available. The Super Nintendo conversion is very accurate. The sprites are a little small, but it plays in exactly the same way, and you have all the same special moves.
The SNES version is 32 meg, compared with the Neo Geo's 130 plus meg. Obviously, something's got to go, and most of it has.
While our challengers argue over who can pull the most birds following their TV appearance, we'll take a look at today's reviews. First up, featuring more snakes than a Freudian dream, it's Pitfall, the Mayan adventure.
Pitfall 2, The Mayan Adventure, is a slick little platform game. It's actually based on an Atari VCS game called Pitfall 1, obviously, which was written 13 years ago. Fortunately for you lot, that's actually hidden inside this game, the complete Atari VCS game, with crap sound and crap graphics.
It's not really taking it any much further than, say, Jungle Book or Lion King. But it's a nice game nonetheless. There's lots to interact with, lots of nice weapons to use. You can use your boomerang or your slingshot with pebbles. And there's some nice ways that they integrate you with the landscape.
If Earthworm Jim was the king of the jungle, then Pitfall would be a scrag-tag little puppy dog begging for food on a cold winter's night. However, Pitfall was the original platform game, so I suppose Earthworm Jim should just be a little bit humble there.
Next, cynically smack into Damon Hill and pretend it was an accident in Virtua Racing Deluxe.
Everything about the game has been improved, not just the graphics, which are now much more colourful, but also the polygons, which are more rounded, the speed, which is much smoother and faster, and also the sound. It's so much more bolstered up and you really feel like you're in the heat of a race rather than just the sort of whiny noise that the Mega Drive made during Virtua Racing.
Virtua Racing on the Mega Drive and in the arcades only had the one car, the Virtua Formula, but you can now get two different types of cars. The first is the stock car that can take a lot of damage and is very Daytona-like, and the second is the prototype car that is very high speed but hasn't got a lot of grip. Basically, this is a lot better than the Mega Drive version that appeared earlier this year, and it's a worthy buy if you're going to get a 32X.
Mega 32X is really showing what it can do here, and this is a fast, playable racing game. And with split-screen mode, it's fantastic fun for two players as well.
Finally, while we await the brilliant Ridge Racer, let's spend some time on the Duff Mansell IndyCar.
Newman-Haas IndyCar Challenge featuring Nigel Mansell. Newman-Haas IndyCar Challenge featuring rubbish graphics and terrible gameplay, more like. This is awful. I mean, it's a stinker.
Mansell's IndyCar on the SNES is basically the same game as Mansell's World Championship that appeared last year. It uses the same game engine and basically you only have some new tracks. If you've already got the first game, then you're not going to get much fun out of this.
These days, to have a successful racing game, it really needs to be full polygonized 3D, like, of course, Virtua Racing on the Mega 32X, or indeed Stunt Race Effects on the SNES. As it is, Nigel Mansell's is very flat in comparison, using sprites instead of the 3D routines. And although it's colourful and fast, it doesn't match up to the more powerful machines.
As our challengers depart once more to enjoy the unique sights and smells of our audience's cage, we'll take a look at today's reviews. First up, after all the hype, is Donkey Kong Country the next generation or just another dull platformer?
The first thing that's going to hit you about Donkey Kong Country is, of course, the graphics, and they are stupendous. It's all been done on Silicon graphics workstations, so all the sprites are really nicely rounded and ray-traced characters.
There are various methods of transportation which Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong can get around with. There's Rambi the Rhino, which he goes around banging them with his horn. And there's also On Guard the Swordfish on the underwater level. It's very good, and I'm sure it's going to do very well this Christmas.
Graphics, as you can see, are fantastic. The music too is brilliant, and it's a very, very big game. The only problem is it's very, very easy. You will finish it on day 1 or day 2.
Next up, the game that scored 100% playability in Gamesmaster magazine, Micro Machines 2.
Gentlemen, start your engines. Micro Machines 2 is here, and there's more miniature madness as you race around tiny surfaces with your tiny cars.
Micro Machines 2 from Codemasters is not only a fantastic 4-player racing game, you won't even have to buy a multi-tap to play it. It has 2 extra joypad ports built into the cartridge.
In terms of actually updating Micro Machines 1, really it's just the extra players that adds to it, and of course the new tracks. The fact that you can get more people playing Micro Machines is always a good thing.
Finally, in my opinion, FIFA 3DO is the most exciting football game ever, but are our reviewers playing on my team?
It has multiple camera angles. It actually looks like you're watching a real game of football at some moments. However, the game itself isn't as fluid and slick as the original FIFA on Mega Drive.
We've seen FIFA suffer on the Mega Drive and on the SNES, but really, you couldn't have done anything like this on either of those consoles. This is really a next-generation game, and I think it's going to be the one that really sells a 3DO over here.
Over the course of the series, we've seen many pieces of plastic, good and bad. But enough about our reviews. Let's find out what games they're looking at. First up, upset parents everywhere by shooting more real-life digitised actors in Lethal Enforcers 2.
For all budding cowboys out there, you can now get your hands on Lethal Enforcers 2. Basically, you can take part in armed robberies, bank robberies, shoot-em-ups at the saloon, and even the Wild West chase with the Indians.
The gameplay is very, very straightforward. Basically, shoot all the bad guys. They're very obvious. They wear black hats and stuff. And try not to shoot the pretty cowgirls and the nice old men.
It's a great game. Somehow this kind of gameplay works really well, although it's not a long-lasting one. Once you've shot all the people you can shoot, then you're never going to come back to it.
You ain't gonna get me,
Next up, the most gorgeous-looking thing since Melissa from 30-something, Magic Carpet.
If I was to say that Magic Carpet was Doom in the air, I'd actually be lying, but it's somewhere near the truth. You're floating around in a 3D environment, you've got a collecting mana so you can build up a huge castle, and you get some wonderful spells at your disposal, the most notable of which is, of course, the earthquake, which tears its way through the landscape, and wonderful 3D graphics.
Shoot lots of things, rescue lots of people, increase your magical power, and take over magical Arabian kingdoms. It's a good-looking game. But again, it's only going to appeal to a limited audience since you need a super powerful machine to get the most from it.
Finally, flying Desert Strike type 3D polygons ahoy in Z-Wolf.
It's a sort of helicopter shoot-'em-up, a bit like Desert Strike, but much more 3D. You can travel around the whole area instead of just a sort of an isometric view. The graphics aren't up to all that much. I mean, it looks a bit like Virus from about 10 years ago, but happily the gameplay is amazing.
This isn't your average everyday shoot-em-up. It's not one where you can just sit down, get straight into it and go around blasting things. There's a lot of artillery, a lot of armour you have to take care of before you can get down to the actual business of rescuing hostages.
You have to scour the earth, destroying entire battalions of tanks, planes and artillery. It takes a long time to complete this game. We're about a third of the way into it and it's huge. And there's nothing particularly new on offer here, but it's such a solid and playable package. I think Amiga owners will love it.
Well, another challenger leaves behind us 15 minutes of fame with only ridicule from former friends lingering on the horizon. While we bask in this golden thought, let's take a look at this week's reviews. First up, gently caress the Force with Star Wars on Sega's just-released 32X add-on.
This Star Wars game is by the same team who put together the Virtua stuff for Sega, like Virtua Fighters and Virtua Racer. And it shows. It's nice, big, blocky polygons, big colours, lots of flashing lights, and very fast, smooth animation.
There are 4 levels in the game. The first one starts you out in deep space, just shooting down a matter of 15 ties. The second level, you're flying over the Death Star. In the third level, you're flying through a ship. You've got to destroy its engine when you get to the end of the level. I didn't get onto the 5th level, so I don't know what's there. Sorry.
It's also very easy, even when you play it on Mega 32X mode, which is supposedly the hardest setting. You should finish it in a day or so, and it's a little disappointing for that. It is a good demonstration of the graphic power of the 32X, but not the game to buy it for.
Meanwhile, in Japan, Virtua Fighters has been bundled with the just-released Saturn. We thought we'd review it now for a laugh.
It's been a long time since I've been truly excited by a video game this much. Virtua Fighters sent large dollops of adrenaline charging through my body. It's an excellent conversion. In fact, I prefer it to the arcade game, which I always found slightly sluggish to respond. Really, you must at least get to see this. And as soon as you do see it, you're going to want a Saturn and Virtua Fighters.
Each character's got their own set of special moves that vary wildly. Some pick each other up by the knees and swing them round and throw them out of the ring, while others jump up into the air and come crashing down on your chest. If the rest of the Saturn games continue to be this good and this good looking, I'm sure the Saturn will do very well.
As a beat 'em up, it's better than all the competition that's gone before. It's better than Street Fighter, it's better than Mortal Kombat, it's better than Primal Rage. It's fantastic. Lots of combos, lots of secret moves, and the most amazing graphics ever seen on a home system. It really is the bee's knees, and certainly worth buying a Saturn for. It's as simple as that.
As our challengers depart once more to enjoy the unique sights and smells of our audience's cage, we'll take a look at today's reviews. First up, they're cute, they're wacky, they're a cartoon license, I hate them already. It's Animaniacs.
The Animaniacs, they're those cute little lovable things that are on telly on Saturday mornings, and you love them. Now they've got their own game on the SNES, and it ain't half bad.
It's a cross between a race game and a platform game. There are 3 lanes of traffic, as it were, to run through. The other Animaniacs get in your way and try to beat you to the finish line. It's definitely a kids' game, this one. There isn't much here for grown-ups, but I think youngsters will enjoy it lots.
You can go into all these different movie areas, like the sci-fi area, which is a particular favourite of mine, as you have these face huggers leaping onto the poor little Animaniacs' faces. It's a good game, very colourful, very nice, nicely reminiscent of the series. Nothing special, but a good game nonetheless.
Next up, the greatest game in the history of the Western world, and that's official, Sensible World of Soccer.
Sensible Soccer is the greatest football game of all time, and at last we've got an update. It's not in the gameplay department, as you might expect, which is just as well, because Sensible Soccer's always been perfect in the gameplay department, and I can't think of any way to improve that. What they've done with this game is to give you a whole load of management options.
You can choose to be any team from anywhere, basically. First division right through to the 3rd division from England, and so forth across all of the European continent and South America. The primary feature of this new game is that it's got a management sim in it, but you don't have to play the management side at all.
This is for people who haven't got Sensible Soccer, really. If you've already got the original, unless you're bonkers, you probably won't want this. But there are some sensible freaks out there, and I can imagine people buying both. Brilliant soccer game, possibly the best of all time.
Finally, if you buy any Power Rangers merchandise this Christmas, you will die a horrible death, and that is official too.
As a beat-em-up, Power Ranger isn't all that bad. It's easy to play, there's only 2 attack buttons, and there's some nice range of special moves.
The game on the Mega Drive is just absolutely rubbish. It's hardly Street Fighter, and there's just not very many special moves. And the ones that there are, they're feeble and weak, and this deserves to be smacked around the head with a large cricket bat.
It's genuinely one of the worst games I have ever laid eyes on. The animation is awful, the graphics are terrible, the gameplay is tedious and repetitive. It is like Double Dragon on Valium.
Another satisfied punter walks away with a higher percentage of skip in his step. Meanwhile, we'll take a look at today's reviews. First up, Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, a hot contender for Smart Game Title of the Year.
For those of you that have got Aero the Acrobat, you're going to find this game very similar. Zero uses the same sort of level layout, if you will. The only real difference that he has over Aero is that he can do a double spin.
It does have some nice sub-games. At one point you get to go on a speedboat, which is a really nice little touch. However, graphically it's gorgeous, but it doesn't really offer anything over Aero the Acrobat.
This is very, very standard platform fare. There's really not much to do. I mean, it's something that seems to have been made about a year ago, and it really doesn't deserve your attention.
Next up, simultaneous 2-player Doom-type Mega Drive action ahoy with Bloodshot.
Basically, each mission is roughly the same. You have to make your way to the centre of a maze, destroy a Guardian boss, and then things go haywire and you have to escape before the level you're on blows up.
The graphics aren't up to match. Sort of like Zero Tolerance as well, but I'd say that Zero Tolerance was a better game because you could actually link up physically 2 Mega Drives to each other and play it on 2 different screens.
Unfortunately, if you really want a good into-the-screen shoot-'em-up and wander around 3D-'em-up, you want to wait for 32X Doom. OK, you're going to have to shell out for the 32X hardware, but it's going to be worth it because Doom is the game in this genre and nothing can touch it, especially on the Mega Drive.
Finally, Wolverine in Adamantian Rage. Adamant gets a bit angry about his recent lack of chart success and failing acting career.
Basically, it's a platform game where you get to control Wolverine and run around and kick everyone in. The sprite's too small, I think, and it just doesn't play very well either.
Of course, this is not the first attempt to recreate a Marvel character on the Mega Drive or the SNES. And in fact, just like the others, it doesn't succeed. I'm still waiting for a really good superhero license on any of the consoles.
You might actually be better off trying something like Spider-Man and the X-Men, which features a lot of the same characters and virtually identical gameplay, albeit with smaller sprites. This isn't bad, but it's not really worthwhile.
Well, I think things are getting just a bit too Yuletidey for me, so let's take a break with today's reviews. First up, the game that launched 1,000 complaints from dull Salvation Army blokes, Cannon Fodder on the Mega Drive.
Cannon Fodder on the Mega Drive is probably one of the best games this year. It has had me playing it for an absolute age. It's brilliant. It's got loads of bullets in, loads of blood in, and I'm going to say it again, it's got guns in it.
You get 72 missions of overhead view battling with military-style tactics, including driving cars and flying aeroplanes and helicopters. And there's loads to do. It's very cute, also very violent in a sort of cutesy way, and highly tactical and strategic.
If you're using a joypad, it's actually all very difficult and annoying to play. With a mouse, it's an addictive, entertaining, and fast-paced shoot-'em-up with more than a hint of strategy.
And now, showing that the 3DO is the console for startlingly original brand new games, Super Street Fighter 2.
Here's a surprise. 3DO's been out for a year, and there's finally a brilliant game for it. If they'd released Super Street Fighter X on 3DO the day it was released, 3DO would have been installed worldwide.
Compared to the coin-op, this is really, really good. The graphics are spot on, the music is brilliant, and it all plays with a rather jolly game of Street Fighter. All the super special moves and finishing combos are in here, and basically, if you love Street Fighter, then you will get off on this.
The only bugbear I have is with the 3DO joypad itself, which is impossible to get to grips with, and pulling off fireballs and dragon punches is much harder than, say, on the SNES joypad. So somebody bring out a nice joypad or joystick for the 3DO.
Now, for home reviewers amongst you, the latest addition to the game line is PC game Big Red Adventure. To download your demo of Big Red Adventure, connect your modem to 081 558 8937. Apart from the cost of the call to London, the service is free, but do remember to get permission from whoever pays the bills. So, as a nation rises in unison to acclaim Lee's effort, well, apart from Emma, that is, we'll take a look at this week's reviews. First up, it's Rye Star. He's a star and he has a wry sense of humour, apparently.
Part of the Sonic team were involved in the development of this game, and it really shows. It looks very similar to Sonic. It also plays a lot like Sonic, which is a bit disappointing. We were really expecting something new.
Basically, he's got these long arms that reach out and grab you and headbutt you like that. He doesn't move as fast as what Sonic actually did. This isn't a bad thing. It's small. It gives you more time to actually go around and explore.
You have to ask yourself, do I want another platform game? If you do, it's not a bad choice, but personally I think Dynamite Headdy might be a better one to go for.
Next up, Mr. Sega has furnished his spanky new 32X with a 2,000-year-old arcade game, Afterburner.
It's not often people complain about arcade-perfect conversions, and Afterburner is arcade-perfect. It looks exactly like the original arcade game. However, the original arcade game had a giant hydraulic cabinet and was more of a fairground ride than a video game.
Can't really do much. It's very limited gameplay. You can do barrel rolls and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have a more complicated and strategic shoot-'em-up than Afterburner on my 32X.
Why are they bringing out Afterburner and another game, Space Harrier? These are old arcade games, and okay, they were immediately fun in their heyday, but now they've just got nothing.
Finally, another game conversion of a stupidly titled kids' TV show, Biker Mice from Mars.
It does look extremely smart. It's a nice view, nice perspective, lots of nice colours, and it whizzes along at a fair old pace.
Biker Mice is basically, you know, rock and roll racing. It looks the same, it plays the same. There are a couple of differences though. You can just basically freeze your opponents, drive past them, go into the lead, or cause an earthquake which slows them down loads and you're not affected.
It can get tedious after a while, but the two-player mode adds to the fun. It's nice, but it's not amazing.
Those people who like to do their own reviews can try their hand at the latest Game Line game, Lion King. To download a demo of this PC game, connect your modem to 081 558 8937. Apart from the cost of the call to London, the service is free, but remember to get permission from the bloke who pays the bills. Now, while I nip off for a spot of goblin tossing, I'll leave you in the bulging biceps of our reviewers. First up, it's dodgy movie license time ahoy with True Lies.
True Lies is awful. It has lots and lots of little sections, and not one of them really stands out on its own. None of them would be good enough as a game in its own right, so I'm afraid it's thumbs down for True Lies.
A good game, slightly let down by a bit stiff mechanics on the gameplay side. Occasionally you have to get very close to the baddies to actually be able to shoot them.
The scenes from the film are there, and it's more like the Chaos Engine in game style. That's not a bad thing, but it could have been done a lot better with some more platform scenes and stuff.
Next up, the 32X attempts to lightly smack the competition with its very first beat-em-up, Cosmic Carnage.
The 32X needs a beat-em-up. It already has shoot-em-ups and driving games in abundance. Cosmic Carnage is a reasonable effort. It's got some nice sprite scaling and some really good graphic effects.
There is, I suppose, a slightly redeeming feature of Cosmic Carnage, and that is you can select different parts of armour. You can kick your opponent's armour off, you can even kick their arms off and stuff, but basically just doesn't detract enough from the awful gameplay.
These ludicrously shambling figures, as they waddle onto the screen, don't really inspire in you the greatest thoughts of beat-em-up excellence. It's not terrible, but really I'd wait for something better to be converted to the 32X.
Finally, waste months of time in pointless no-mates activity with the RPG Soleil.
It's got a lot in common with things like Zelda and Secret of Mana, in that you have to explore a lot of stuff, but there's also a good bit of action in there. There are very simple puzzles to solve, and the game is absolutely vast.
The graphics aren't exactly groundbreaking or anything, but they are very cute, very well drawn, and they suit the game perfectly. And even so, graphics in a game like this don't really matter. It just helps with the overall atmosphere and feel of the game.
The Mega Drive seems to lag about 3 years behind the SNES these days in terms of software games, and this is a case in point. Soleil is an RPG very much in the Zelda mould. You've got about 4 months on your hand and you fancy getting your teeth into a game, and this is one for you.
For those home reviewers amongst you, the latest Gameline game is Psycho Pinball. To download a demo of this PC game, connect your modem to 081 558 8937. Apart from the cost of the call to London, the service is free, but remember, if you don't get permission from the bloke who pays the bills, you're dead. Now, the big question is, with this being the final show, how will you live without our reviewers when the show's not on air? Well, that's not really my problem, is it? Let's find out their final opinions. Get on your bike, as some bloke once said, so saddle up with Cheeky Norm for a dose of Road Rash 3.
they've actually taken the sprites from the 3DO version and scaled them down to fit on the Mega Drive. In terms of gameplay, there's only really one new option, and that's that you can climb on another opponent's bike when he gets knocked off.
If you've already got a Road Rash game, don't bother buying this. The Road Rash 3 has got split-screen two-player mode. It's slightly faster and better looking than the preceding two games, but virtually the same game.
People who have motorbikes are sure to love this sort of game. Not fair, not nice, but pretty good fun nonetheless.
I'm sure I'm not the only one whose pants have been pooed waiting for LucasArts' Star Wars shoot-'em-up, but has Dark Forces been worth the wait?
Well, the first things I noticed about this game is just like the attention to detail. It is absolutely brilliant. However, there's no blood in it, there's no chainsaws, you know, I mean, what can I say? Doom rules.
The graphics are actually better than Doom. It's a little faster and a little smoother. What this game adds to the Doom scenario, though, is strategy. Instead of just shooting everything, you actually have a mission to accomplish, which is to steal the plans for the Death Star.
It's actually more impressive technically than Doom or Doom 2, simply because you have more depth of vision. Not only can you look straight ahead, but you can also look up and down, you can jump up steps, and there's a wider variety of terrains that you have to get through.
It certainly looks different, but is Uni Races original and addictive, or just plain silly, childish and immature?
The simple objective is to reach the end of the course, and you have to beat the computer player or your human opponent in two-player mode. In order to build up speed, you have to perform a series of stunts. You can do flips and somersaults and spins and all kinds of stuff like that.
I found it quite simply one of the best two-player games I've found in ages. It's totally addictive. You learn as you go, and as you find new tricks and new somersaults to do, it becomes even more compelling.
You're just trying to race each other to the end, and you know, you might just get pipped to the post, and it's really annoying, especially when, you know, someone who you know you can beat just pips you with like a little extra move. It's pretty annoying, but great fun.
For home reviewers out there, this week's Gameland game is Scottish Open Golf. You can download a demo of this PC game by connecting your modem to 081 558 8937. Apart from the call to London, the service is free, but remember to get permission from whichever fool pays your bills. Another satisfied punter walks away with a higher percentage of skip in his step. Meanwhile, we'll take a look at this What? Sorry about that. Right, it's time to get gory. We trawled the vaults to bring you the sickest games around. But before we really get going, here's our reviewers with a recap on what's apparently made people change their pants in the past, beginning with Mortal Kombat.
One of the things that bafflingly got people very worked up about Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 was, of course, the death moves or fatalities. Perhaps the most potentially frightening is when Baraka switches out his knives from his wrists and plunges them into the chest of his oppressor, lifts him above his head and lets him slide down while still twitching with the last bits of life dripping out of him. That could possibly be the most gruesome thing I've seen in a video game.
Tim's obviously led a sheltered life. Anyway, next up was some have described as the video game version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they are Sado's Doom.
Doom has a pretty horrific atmosphere. This is compounded by the manual, which describes levels like knee-deep in the dead and the shores of hell. It's all very schlock horror, but once you actually get into the game, the actual atmosphere created by the great graphics and the amounts of blood spraying around is quite creepy and disturbing. You can genuinely get a fright when you turn a corner and find a zombie stood there with a machine gun.
Heretic is the latest game to jump straight up the jacksie of the Doom bandwagon. The game's a medieval version of the classic PC game and allows you to look up and down as well. Other additions include new weapons and an improved multiplayer link-up. If you've got the original Doom, you can spice it up with one of the many Doom patches available. This Alien add-on has creatures from the film, new levels and rude sound bites. Slightly different, there's Barney the dinosaur, that annoying Energizer bunny, Daleks, and even Bill Clinton.
Thank you, and fuck you.
Back to our reviewers, and finally a game that everybody's heard of but never played, the tabloid-friendly Night Trap.
In Night Trap, what you basically had to do was catch the bad guys and stop them from getting to the girls. Whenever the bad guys would go near a trap, operate that and catch them. Simple, easy peasy. However, if you didn't catch them in time, they would then go on to do nasty and terrible things to the girls. As again, it failed, because I just let the bad guys go and they went and got the girls in whatever way they saw fit.
Adrian Price, proof that playing video games doesn't turn you into a complete arse.
Bollocks.